the high desert in the great American Southwest. I bid you all good evening or good morning, as the case may be, and welcome to another edition of the best in live overnight talk radio, covering an area ranging from the Hawaiian and Tahitian island chains all the way east to the Caribbean and the U.S. Virgin Islands, south into South America, north to the pole, and worldwide on the Internet. This is Coast to Coast AM. I'm Art Bell. Good morning. I have been advised that we may have some Internet difficulties with regard to audio this morning. Satellite C1, or F1, is being inundated with apparently terrible weather in Denver, and that would account for the sporadic operation of F1 this morning. It will not affect, however, the grand majority of you listening on radio stations across the country and beyond. Those listening on the Internet may experience audio interruptus as a result of the Denver weather troubles. Now, having said that, this has been a remarkable day. I'll tell you all about it in a moment. We're going to talk about crop circles. Now, my guest is going to verify this for you, because otherwise nobody would believe it. The synchronicity involved in this. I got a very interesting fax earlier in the day, which suggested that, well, it says, Art, guaranteed to blow your mind. Doug Ruby, author of The Gift, Crop Circles Deciphered. The Crop Circles Deciphered. And I thought, Doug is in Melbourne, Florida. He's a veteran commercial airline pilot, and we'll ask him about that shortly. But I thought, Crop Circles Deciphered. He's written a book. And I thought, all of us, of course, have wanted to know what these crop circles are. So about, I guess, midday for him, actually morning. Let me back that up even a little further. I called him at about 6 o'clock in the morning, my time, 9 o'clock his time, back in Florida, and said, I really would like to talk to you about your book, Deciphering of Crop Circles. And so we set it up for tonight, and he is going to be my guest here in a few moments. Now, the incredibly synchronistic part. When I woke up, I got a fax that said, well, I'll read it to you. It says, wow! Hi, Art and Ramona. Check out the latest crop circle at Stonehenge. You can see a aerial photo of the crop circle connector at the crop circle connector website. The words that popped into my mind immediately upon viewing it were Tree of Life from Deborah in Santa Barbara. So it was the usual last-minute scramble, and I got Keith, who got to the connector page and downloaded the photograph and put in a link to the connector page. And she is a beaut. The new Stonehenge 97 crop circle, in obviously a new crop, a fresh crop, is up there to be seen right now. So if you go up there under the new items, I think, or maybe it's a guest page, I'm not sure which, you'll see the name Doug Ruby, author of The Gift, The Crop Circles Deciphered. Then next to it, you will see a link to the connector web page, and if you have trouble with that, click on the other one, and you will see a picture of this newest, received, I don't know, about an hour ago, aerial photograph of this incredible crop circle at Stonehenge. So, pretty synchronistic, I would say, wouldn't you? Coming up in a moment, Doug Ruby. All right, everybody, don't forget we've got the live studio cams up. And from time to time, I, of course, printed out in about the last 10 minutes a photograph of this incredible Stonehenge crop circle. And I've been holding that up to the camera. Now, in case you don't know about our studio cams, you can go to the top of the news section, I think it's still up there, and click on Studio Cam Live, and you will get high quality, very high quality photographs that are taken here in my studio about every 30 seconds, transferred to a server and distributed from my website. We've got 3 cameras working, all going at different angles, so you can sit here and do I hear you on the radio and I see you on TV, sort of type deal. And I will hold up this photograph, but my inclination is not to do that very much because obviously you're already on the website. You can go and look at this for yourself and see the actual photograph. God, it's incredible. Here is my guest from Melbourne Beach, Florida, Doug Ruby. Doug, welcome to the program.
Well, thanks, Art. And you want to talk about synchronicity here as I was listening to you. Last night when I got in from flying, amongst my meal was a letter from a fellow up in Alberta, Canada. And it just reads real quick. Thanks for the great book. I think you've hit the nail on the head. Where was I 2 years ago when the book came out? A little bit more, and then good luck in your investigations. I'd be happy to help out in any way. And then you called this morning, got me out of bed, as you know, from getting in. So
it was what, about 9 o'clock your time or something?
It was 9:30.
Okay, and you came in from your pilot, commercial pilot.
Uh-huh.
Do you want to tell us as much as you think advisable under the circumstances about your background?
Sure. And what Art means by that, because he's so well acquainted with it, is airline companies these days don't like their pilots talking about extraterrestrials, UFOs, and this area of endeavor. Therefore, we will glance over that.
Even though, in other words, even though you have definitive opinions about extraterrestrial life and so forth, you also have a career.
Sure.
And a mutual friend of ours lost his job for talking about similar things.
And relating and mentioning the company. And they don't really mind. You're absolutely entitled to your opinions, but please do not relate this to your business. And that's all they asked. It was a goof outside of his arena, but it happened after a warning, and they let him go.
Yeah.
So
nobody wants that to happen to you. What kind of planes do you generally fly? Can you say that?
The bigger airplanes, 727s on up.
727s and up. All right, that'll do. Okay. So your background. When did you become? I mean, here you've been flying for what, 25, 30 years?
Sure. Yeah. I started out knowing I wanted to fly when I was a kid. Ended up having to go to college. Didn't want to go straight in the military, but they didn't have that program at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So got my 4-year degree, then went in the Air Force, was immediately packed off to Southeast Asia, spent 18 months over there, came on back, got out after 5 years of duty, went in the airlines, been here ever since.
Uh-huh. Okay. So you've been a pilot all this time.
Sure.
How do you get from being a pilot? The average person would say, well, if he's a pilot, he's probably seen a bunch of these crop circles from the air.
No, and you'd have to be pretty low. Things get pretty small. The houses get smaller as you go up.
They do.
So you're not going to really see any crop circles from the air, and the area in England where they're predominantly created, although they've been created everywhere in the world except, I believe, Africa and China. And I just got one of my emails today was from the Crop Circle Society here in the United States, and they had a message from Czechoslovakia, a fellow over there, and they have a number of them every year.
Well, last year, pun intended, we really had a bumper crop. Of course, some tremendous ones. This is the one that we're looking at right now, and that my audience, I'm sure, is racing up to my website to take a look at, is one of the more interesting ones thus far in 1997, and of course it is at Stonehenge in what is obviously a brand new crop, because it's very green. So for the radio audience that doesn't have a computer and cannot get up there and take a look at this, can you describe, let us begin with the newest, can you describe this crop circle that I'm looking at right now?
Yeah, just think of a circle, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 sides inside the circle, and then there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spokes coming out from the center with what would appear as a crystalline structure. The whole thing appears as a crystalline structure. Just think of a snowflake, but more of a crystal structure than a snowflake. But it's that type of image they've created here. And Art and I were talking just a little bit before the show about this because I just pulled it up. If you took a pan, let's say a 15-inch metal pan, and you put some metal dust in it, iron dust in it, not filings, but dust.
Right.
You put 16 magnets under that pan, run around there in a geometric pattern, and you energize these with a specific frequency, which would create a harmonic. Mm-hmm. At some specific harmonic, you would create that pattern, and that's what they're telling us. Now, what does that mean? Okay?
Well, I'm sitting here thinking of what you're saying, and are you suggesting that a specific magnetic arrangement beneath the surface of the Earth is, well, I don't know, I'm just guessing.
Yeah, okay.
You know, I'm thinking magnets underneath, right?
Yeah. No, what I'm trying to explain to you is, because what I'm doing now is what I deciphered and what's in the book, The Gift, does not apply to this. There we're talking about a ship that they're showing us. What they're showing us here is part of the power plant, and what they're giving us here is a specific or harmonic.
Wait a minute. Let me stop you. What they're showing us here is part of a power plant.
It is the power plant that runs a spaceship, and what they're giving us in this particular crop circle is when we energize these magnets with a harmonic, with this specific harmonic,
right?
That dust in that pan will take that formation exactly. You will, when you see it, you will know you've got the right harmonic. Okay?
Huh.
And that's how they build piece by piece and tell you how this thing operates. You don't have to sit down and figure this stuff out. You don't need any mathematics. It's all ratios. There is written instructions, unbelievably, that I've just discovered a couple months ago that pertains to all of this. And I don't want to go into that right now, but I'm just explaining to you what you're looking at here, which nobody knows. And that's not an ego trip, I say that. I'm just saying I've been working on this for years.
That's quite a statement. I have never heard anybody make as definitive a statement about what a crop circle is as you just made. Now, so the next obvious question, Doug, is how can you know this?
Well, I have to start someplace here with you. In my book, I start off with the 1990 crop circles, and we don't want to go through the history of this thing, but these were the large pictograms that stunned the world back in 1990, and then at the end of that, I believe it was that season, or it was a 91 season, Doug and Dave over there came out and through their rehearsed put-up campaign said, "Oh, we're making all of them," and this ran around the world on the media, and the interest just totally dissipated, except for the people that knew better, that had been there, that had seen them, and knew that this was for real. And years went by until there was more interest. Now, I took the 90, 91, and a smattering of 92 formations, and these were, again, the large pictograms, and I deciphered these. And from that, I have gone on for a very simple reason that when the book came out, the people that I thought would go poof-ah to it were the ones that went, wow. And those were those with an engineering background, doctors, lawyers, in the professional field, all went nuts over it.
All right. Well, again, I'm going to return to my question, even going back to 91. How did you decipher what they meant?
Okay.
It's a central question.
Okay. What I did is I looked at these formations, and I said to myself, after reading a number of these books, these can't be being created by hoaxers. Number one, they're too large. They're just unbelievable. Then I said, well, I think this is a higher form of intelligence that's trying to communicate with us, and they're using an advanced state of technology to create these things to begin with. And the question was, if you come to those two conclusions,
right,
why wasn't anybody deciphering them? So I went and said, I can't do anything off planet for an analogy. I have to find something right here on Earth that I can make a relationship here between an intelligence, extraterrestrial intelligence. How and why are they doing this? What I came up with an analogy that worked perfect was our friends the dolphins.
The dolphins?
The dolphins. I looked at a dolphin show. I was out in Vegas on a layover, and I went to, I don't know, Caesar's Palace or whatever there's got the dolphin show, and it hit me. And I said, they're looking at the whole dolphin show. They're sitting there in the audience watching the show, and that's what everybody is doing with the crop circles. They're hit every year with this tremendous array of patterns, and by looking at the whole show, they aren't understanding what's happening here. You have to look for the simple. And I know, and I talked to dolphin trainers out there, and I said, how long does it take you to get this thing going from the get-go? And they said, years. And they work with these animals before that communication is established, and it starts off in very little steps with hand signs. But now you have two beings that have a definite language of their own, but they cannot communicate with their language between the two of them. But they evolved a sign language that they understood and they could communicate with.
Gotcha.
Okay. Now, besides that, by the time that show occurred, the dolphins and the trainers had established a rapport between the two of them. They understood each other to a great degree. Can you see that?
Yes. In other words, as communication increased, understanding between the species obviously would increase.
Sure.
That makes absolute sense.
There was a bonding that took place there.
A bonding, yes, I'm sure that's right. And so then you approach crop circles the same way.
So I said, yes, exactly. I said, the answers will lie in the simple. The directions will lie within the simple formations and lead me into the more complex formations.
All right, hold it right there, Doug. Relax. You've got several minutes. We're going to take a break here at the bottom of the hour. You ought to see this crop circle. It's a new one at Stonehenge as of tonight. Synchronicity, huh? Because I've got the man who says he's deciphered crop circles. In a way, we're talking about the complex versus the simplistic, aren't we? Going back to the basics. To decipher crop circles, not by looking for the fractal complexities of them, but by going back to the basics in the way one might teach and begin to communicate with a dolphin. I've got to read you this. Just cleared my fax machine. Hi, Art. During the heat of the space race in the 1960s, the U.S. National Aeronautics and Space Administration decided it needed a ballpoint pen to write in the zero-gravity confines of its space capsules. After considerable research and development, the astronaut pen was developed at a cost of about $1 million. The pen worked, and also enjoyed some modest success as a novelty item back here on Earth. The Soviet Union, faced with the same dilemma, used a pencil. Thank you, Cooter. I appreciate that. That lives as one of the all-time great faxes. The Soviet Union, faced with the same dilemma, used a pencil. Once again, back to my guest in, I believe, Melbourne Beach, Florida. He is Doug Ruby. Doug, welcome back.
Thank you, Eric.
So, in the spirit of simplicity, I thought that fit right in.
Beautiful.
Anyway, so you looked at the way they instructed dolphins, which took a long period of time, and they began with the most simplistic, basic forms of communication and worked their way up to more complex commands and or communication, depending on how you want to think about it. And you approached crop circles the same way.
Exactly. And from that point, I just, what I was searching for was the simplest crop circle I could find. And I came up with one. It's nothing but a disc with some interrupted rings on it, two inside rings at different spacing that were half a ring, and then there was nothing. And at that point, I said, well, I'm looking at this thing. What do I do now? And I did what any human would do. I said, I want to pick this up. So I cut it out. I put it on some cardboard, glued it to some cardboard, picked it up. And as I'm doing this, I'm thinking about the movie 2001. What did the apes do, or that early man do, when they saw that monolith? They went over and they started feeling it.
That's right.
That's the way we do. I mean, it's
touching and feeling. No, that's true.
Yeah. So, I mean, somebody was waiting. They knew about us. That's what I'm trying to get at. These folks who made these formations know us very well, okay? They know the way we do things. So I picked it up, and I said, now what do I do with it? Well, it's got interrupted rings on it. And I put a button on the back of it, glued a button on the back of this little thing, and spun it on the table with my fingers. Just like a little flat top. You can buy them today in the Discovery store, wherever. And the thing spun great, and what happened was the interrupted rings became whole rings. And I said, well, what are they showing me here? They're telling me I'm supposed to spin these things. And, okay, the simple.
Now, let's go over this again. I want to be sure the audience gets it. You took a simplistic thing, one of the most simplistic crop circles, and you made a little attachment to a little piece of cardboard, and you spun the thing. And when you did, it connected. In other words, describe it again, please.
Okay. The disc, or this crop circle, is a circle with a large dark spot, let's call it, or circle in the center. And then there are two rings on the outside of that, but they're only half rings. There's half of it on one side of the circle and half on the other.
Okay, I just drew that. Oh, I see what happened.
Okay.
I see what happened.
It just leads you naturally to say, yeah, you know, if I toss this, so I put a button on the back and I toss it just for curiosity, and the rings just made a whole ring.
Right.
Okay. I said, neat. Well, what's this telling me? And what they're telling me is I'm supposed to spin them. Okay? It's that simple.
Okay.
So then what I did is, let's go get another one. So the next one I could find, I couldn't find one that just had interrupted rings or anything like that. And it had an appendage on it. It had something coming off of it. And now it was out of balance. So what am I going to do with this? I can't spin this on a table like I just did. But if I put a shaft on the back of it, glued a shaft on it, I could roll it in my hands, and I could see what that thing formed as it spun. And I did that, and it was really neat. It formed more rings on the outside of it when I did that.
Huh.
So I said, I mean, the formation when you spin something like this, it becomes a blur in a way, but it works up to that blur, and it becomes something else. Okay, it transforms. So now what I just learned was there's something in that formation they want me to see, definitely, because this was a 6-petal flower that I did. But what they were telling me, the main message was, you're supposed to put a shaft on these, Doug. It was that simple. Spin them by putting a shaft on them.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so at that point, I made another one, and it had longer appendages on it, but it was very interesting.
And again, you're working with crop circles at this point, what, from 91?
These are 1990.
1990.
July 1990.
Okay.
I'm looking at my book here. It's Great Wishford, created mid-July 1990. Now, this one had appendages going out even farther, extending out from the main circle even farther, and this was not going to balance very well on my hand. And at this point, I said, I need to make a little machine that I can spin these on, that I can put the post in, and I can spin them. And I went out and stopped my research at the time and went out and made a spinning machine.
Well, you know what I would have done? I'd have gone and bought a turntable.
I got to spin them faster than that.
Okay.
And then the one thing that happened at that point was I began to get some confidence with this thing. I could see something was developing. I could feel it. And I went to the large pictograms.
All right, before you do that, a lot of people in the audience are going to want to know some of the details so they can try this themselves.
All right.
How fast do you have to spin them? I mean, if you think of the old 45 RPM, even the 78 RPM, how many RPMs do you think you have to get to, and is it consistent, or do you find at different, in other words, is there one RPM speed that seems to bring one result with nearly all photographs, or are you at different speeds?
I'm at different speeds. But I'm going to say they're going to run from 80 RPM to somewhere around 200 to 300. Not much higher than that.
All right. How do you make a device, if I may ask, that will accomplish that?
Okay. I made it, just think of a box. I got a box, okay, but I made it out of wood.
Right.
Got a electric fan motor, mounted it in the bottom.
Right.
Put a little piece of plastic tubing attached that to the shaft, and then in the top of the box, I drilled a hole and I put a round set of ball bearings in there with a center hole for the shaft in it. Just bought them straight out of the hardware store. And now the shaft would go on the top of the box and hook into that piece of tubing in the bottom, which would connect the shaft. Okay. This is real Rube Goldberg simple stuff.
That's all right.
Yeah, just put a regular fan rheostat on it and ran that thing up, okay?
A fan rheostat. And so then you can adjust the RPMs.
Sure.
Okay.
No, I had no tack on it. I had no way to tell you exactly what RPMs I'm running. I can tell you that these first cardboard models I had, I ran them so fast that they flew apart. And then I knew I had to get a better material, and I went to wood. And at that point, I went to the pictograms. And when I did this, I found my prior knowledge applied immediately. And let me explain this to your audience here. These pictograms began appearing. The first one was Alton Barnes in 1990. This went around the world. A couple of rock groups used it on their cover of their albums. And they stunned everyone. The visitors out there were in tremendous numbers. What you've got here is a long shaft drawn in the field. And you got 3 rings on it, or 3 circles, one at each extremity of it, and then one in the middle, which is the largest one. And there are rings there are concentric rings within that formation.
Right.
Okay. What I did was, as I looked at this thing, I said, I know I've got to pick it up, so I cut it out. I put it on cardboard, cut it out, and I've got this thing this contraption in my hand. I said, what am I supposed to do with this now? Well, I've already done this with my prior crop circles, and I picked it up and I put a shaft on it. Now here I've already got the shaft, and I say, these suckers are supposed to rotate 90 degrees. It's obvious. And I rotated all 3 90 degrees.
Uh-huh.
And I said, what do I do now? As I slid them together, all I made was a nice little sandwich. I said, what's going on? Well, just a week or two after that crop, Alton Barnes had been created, there was another one almost identical to it created in Crawley, but it had a couple of additions to it. And I said, maybe these things are additive. I don't know why, but let's do it. and it was only 4 lines, vertical lines, between two of the, 2 on each side of the post,
right,
that separated 2 of these circles. When I inserted them, this thing became a little ship on the shaft. And when I spun it went 3-dimensional on me.
Wow.
And this is something we discussed earlier, real quickly, because I was trying to figure out how to do it, and I wanted to give the folks out there a present. And it's not, I'm not giving it from me, I'm giving it from the crop circle creators to you. Anyone who's out there listening to your program, Art, is looking into the unknown. They have a desire for this, just like you and I do.
Of course.
So let's give them a present. And I'm going to FedEx you tomorrow this, all drawn out in the paper, and a couple pages out of this book. And all they're going to need is to download this, print it out if they are on the internet. They can, and all you need is a glue stick, glue it to a piece of cardboard, cut it out, and have either a pencil or a little bit longer shaft, a dowel, which you can buy in a hardware store or hobby shop, and mount it on, and you can make this thing yourself. And when you do, you will have communicated with extraterrestrials.
This is stunning. Stunning. I never, and I don't know why, when you look at nearly any crop circle, by the way, including the one that we have even tonight, just as you came on the air, when you look at it, it should be obvious that it is intended to be spun. There's a center. In other words, everything moves from a center. And as you have described this, it hit me like a brick wall.
Sure. Exactly. Once you get finished, and I'm not pushing the book here, but a lot of people I've talked to, a gal up in New Hampshire, she was interviewing me for a little thing in a magazine. She said, Doug, I just read the book, and did you see the crop circle on TV last night? And I said, yeah. I said, since you've read the book, tell me, Eileen, do you know what it is? She says, I knew what it was immediately. She said, it's so easy. I said, once you see it. And there is a caution here. There are many, many different forms of information conveyed by each of these information. These folks are extremely intelligent. They are going to hit you on a subconscious level. There is a sacredness about them that when you visit the crop circles that you will feel this energy. And
Doug, how specific is the message that we're getting? Now, you said of the early crop circles back in 90, you were able to discern through the process you've described, and I'm afraid I'm going to have to make you describe it again after the next hour, a ship. Now, when I asked you about the crop circle that we've got up on the website, the brand new one, you said it's part of a propulsion system or a drive system.
Sure. All they're showing you here is a specific harmonic, and this is very simple to understand. Geometry, sacred geometry, platonic geometry. This is not tough stuff, okay? If I understand it, it's not tough stuff. Geometry equals frequency equals energy, and you can put those in any order you want. They have shown us the geometry here. If we can convert that just by looking at this picture and setting up what I told you before, your magnets with your pan and running your frequency, what you think it is close to, that iron dust in the pan, you will at some point match what you've got, what you're looking at there. When you do, you have that frequency that you need for that portion of the power plant. And how do you know what portion of the power plant? Because this crop circle that you see right here that was created within the last 24 hours will apply to the set of crop circles you're getting this summer. And most likely we will not get maybe one more of this type this summer because they want us to know that this harmonic applies to the formations which apply to that section of the power plant.
Wow. Is it your view that through the years they have shown us how to build a ship? Is that what they're doing?
That is exactly what they're doing. They're giving us a gift, and that's what I run through in the book. What I'm doing here is, and believe this is a bear for me to assemble, to explain it to someone else in this book, but I think I did a pretty good job. And what I do here is I run through some of these formations, and the reader becomes acquainted with some of these various pictograms because they're different. And then I go to a specific grouping of them which apply to the ship itself, to the shape of the ship. And from these we extract a saucer, a specifically designed saucer. And then the book becomes a flight manual. And why I was chosen.
Flight manual. Well, I don't have to reach too far to understand why you were chosen.
All right. Well, what I'm trying to say to you is from on this book, we apply what we've already seen in the crop circles. And we apply this to the actual model, and I go right through ascent, descent, lateral motion, longitudinal motion, angular motion, hovering, how it does it, how the ship actually does this.
Holy smokes.
And I allude to and explain in the back what we're looking at here at where I was at that time 2 years ago, what this power plant was, what was coming at me at looking at that early stage. And what has happened is many people I talked to said, Doug, I really loved the book. I saw it. It slammed together about 3/4 of the way through it. It took that long, but I stayed with it. But I want to see it. Show me. And I'm going, my God, you think I have $1 trillion? But it is not going to cost that much.
Let me make a suggestion. One thing that you could do, one way to show people, since you're equipped to do it, if you have a video camera, which I would bet you do, what would stop you from doing a video and then turning that into an AVI file that we could allow people to download and actually see this process underway?
We can do that.
An AVI file is simply a digital rendition of video.
Mm-hmm.
And people can download that and run it on their computers. My God, this comes under the category of, oh my God. Listen, rest. We're at the top of the hour, and when we come back, we have more stations joining us. So I've really got to, push you through explaining this one more time, and it's worth doing. So, Doug, stay right where you are, and we'll be right back. What I've got coming up for you comes under the oh my God category. Trust me on this. Bear with me on this. The subject is crop circles. Los Angeles, San Francisco, other affiliates joining at this hour. My guest is Doug Ruby. Doug flies big airplanes, 737s and bigger, for a major airline. Because of the nature of his employment, we're really not naming the airline or laying on that aspect of why he's here. Why he's here is Doug, I booked him at about, 9 o'clock Eastern time this morning because of somebody that sent me a fax and said, Art, it's guaranteed to blow your mind. You've got to get Doug Ruby, or try to get him. He is author of a book called The Gift, The Crop Circles Deciphered. And so I picked up the phone and I called his publisher. His publisher gave me his number, and I thought, what the heck, I'll give it a try. And I called, and Doug was just waking up in Florida at about 9-something in the morning, and we talked for a while about crop circles, and at that time, I had no idea how he had deciphered them, nor did I want to take the time, because I wanted to discover it here on the air, and boy, have I been doing that. Now, synchronicity. Not only do I get the fax, not only does he get a fax about me, but I then call him within hours, mind you, and then tonight, about an hour before airtime, this gets deep, folks, I got a fax from, and I'm not sure what I've done with it. Here it is. Deborah in Santa Barbara. Love to have you on, Deborah, if you can get through. Which simply says, wow, hi, Art and Ramona. Check out the latest crop circle at Stonehenge. You can see a photo at the Crop Circle Connector website. The words that popped into my mind immediately upon viewing it were Tree of Life, signed Deborah in Santa Barbara. It was about an hour before airtime, okay? So, of course, I pick up the phone and call my webmaster, Keith Rowland, and I say, quick, Keith, get over to the Connector website and see if you can download this, please. And so he went over there and, of course, got it. And it is astounding. It's in, obviously, a new crop at this time of year would be green. And I've got the man who can tell you what this is. And what we're going to do is briefly back up in a moment, and we're going to have Doug explain exactly how he deciphered crop circles. And if you stick with it and listen for a moment, you'll get to the point that I got to, and you'll go, oh, my God, he's right. So he is the first person who has come along, in my opinion, and told us what crop circles really are. And they are a gift. We'll get to Doug in a moment. The kinds of faxes I'm getting say things like wow and astounding and things I can't repeat on the air. Doug, I think that you connected with a lot of people out there. Welcome back.
Thanks.
Doug, let's try this one more time. The simple form. You tried to figure out what crop circles were. And in doing so, you explained that you went to, what was it, SeaWorld or one of those places where they train dolphins? Oh, no, here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, it was there in Vegas.
And asked what process they use to train dolphins. And they start out, of course, with the simplest of commands or communication, some sort of hand signal that will eventually cause the dolphin to understand what you want it to do. And you correct me if I'm wrong here. And then they proceed to more complex hand signals so that slowly the trainer and the dolphin, again with synchronicity, begin to, in effect, communicate with each other.
That's correct.
And I thought, uh-oh, he's going to say this has something to do with dolphins. But no, indeed not. That was only a primer so that we might understand your approach to deciphering crop circles. Now, by the way, folks, his book is called The Gift, The Crop Circles Deciphered. Now, in doing that, you said you took a crop circle from 1991, and you described it this way to me. You said put a dot in the middle of the paper, draw a circle, a wide circle around that dot, and then draw two half circles that do not connect. And you went through this whole business of trying to figure out what this might mean. You eventually ended up spinning these. In other words, these crop circles are meant to spin. So that is when you understand them. And obviously, if you draw out what I just described and you spin it, you end up with, and this was one of the simplest crop circles, as you would begin with a dolphin, you end up with a circle within a circle, where there was none before.
That's correct.
And you rigged up a whole box and stuff to, using a fan motor and a rheostat to control the RPMs, and not each one of the crop circles begins to become meaningful at the same RPM, which means what, do you think, Doug? Are we dealing, is it a matter of, RPM relates to frequency, does it not?
It does, Art. What you got to understand here is when we're talking about these models, and what you've just described is we're just starting here with the basics. When you get into the pictograms, the insectograms, these other complex models, now you're dealing with a little ship, but you can't really see what it's doing until it's spun. And at a certain speed, this thing becomes three-dimensional. It looks solid. And at that point, and not only that, but you have spheres that are attached to the shaft or about the ship as it spins that create fields. In other words, they now become a blur around it that you can now see fields around the ship that, of course, you can see right through them. And by doing this, information is revealed to you that you would never see unless you spun it. You would never even guess what it's doing. And that becomes absolutely amazing. When I hit the one insectogram with the ladder on it, and I spun that sucker, and I saw this magnificent field below the ship, I don't know. I just got goosebumps all over. I said, I've done it. I mean, this is definitely, and you can feel it, and you can see it here when you look at the photographs. And I'll be happy to send you a video on it. I've already got one, and the folks can look at it and see for themselves.
All right, Doug, I want to ask you first of all if you can send me that video.
Yeah, no problem.
I can give you do you have an address? Did I give you my address earlier?
No, we can.
All right, we'll do that on a break.
Sure.
In the meantime, folks, what Doug is saying is that what we have been getting since, when would you estimate, 1990?
The crop circle started in earnest in probably 1989. In 1990, it really busted loose with over 1,000, around 1,000 in 1990 and 91. There is a little catch to that in that the English didn't really know how to count these things, because every time there was what's called an add-on, in other words, maybe another circle would appear the next day or in a week, and then maybe something else would appear, and they might add on to these things for 4 or 5 days. And so they would count each add-on as a new crop circle. So the count is really not a definite one. It might have only been, let's say there were 400. Okay.
Okay, that's a lot.
This is still an awesome number. Yeah.
It sure is. Now they have appeared all over the world, but they have appeared. They seem to be most prolific in Great Britain.
Correct.
Any idea why?
Yes. They are mainly in Wiltshire County, and in that area, let's say 80-mile circumference of Wiltshire area, and in that geographic area is where Stonehenge is located, where Avebury is located, where Silbury Hill is located, and many other ancient megalithic sites. And when you take into consideration that Stonehenge was created about the same time or previous to the Cheops Pyramid or the Great Pyramid, we're talking somewhere around 5,000 to 6,000 years ago is when they date this, the building of this, which comprised a time period of 100 years. This thing wasn't done. Stonehenge was not built overnight. These are, as everyone knows, are gigantic blocks of rock weighing many, many tons.
So, you're connecting this to the pyramids.
Well, yes, the pyramids do have something to play with this, especially with the energy, as we talked about before. Geometry equals frequency, frequency equals energy. Put those in any way you, any sequence you want. I don't care. I'm just telling you that what we call sacred geometry or platonic geometry in a 3D state. And if you stop drawing them on paper, pick them up in three-dimensional form. When these are spun and you place them within each other in a specific manner, they will create energy.
Well, without your going back to the beginning, the first crop circles, to begin to try to decipher them in the manner that you have now obviously, I don't want to say stumbled into, and in fact we'll get, I guess, into that, how you were driven into this, weren't you? I mean, you remember, folks, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, when the fellow sat there making the image of the mashed potato with the mashed potatoes. Just about everybody remembers that, and he was compelled to do it. You were, in the same way, compelled to try and decipher crop circles. How did that begin?
It was about the last 5 or 6 days of 1993, just after Christmas, in between there and New Year's. And it was this came out of nowheres. About 91, when we all heard about the crop circles were hoaxes, I dropped my interest as well. Then, during that period of 1993, it was a feeling, I wake up one morning and say, you know, I ought to look at crop circles. And it was the same thing that many of you out there have had in saying, you know, I ought to call my mother today.
Yeah.
And that day you think about once maybe that day. The second day, you're thinking about it 5 times. By the sixth or seventh day there, we're at December 31st, and it's New Year's Eve, and I cannot wait to go. The only thing I can think of is getting to the bookstore and hoping there's one open on New Year's Day in Melbourne, Florida, and there was, and they had one book on crop circles there, and I rushed home and read the thing. And this is not exactly what my soulmate here wanted me to do on New Year's Day, but that is what happened.
By the way, how have you done with your soulmate? I can understand that she'd probably be sitting there at that point saying to herself, okay, honey, whatever you want to do. How condescending.
You're absolutely right. Poor Jeannie has taken a beating here. She has never, she just doesn't see this. She's not tremendously interested in it. And it's been a wow thing for her all along, especially when I almost did not, for another synchronicity, after this happened, I did not fly almost for January, February, and March at all.
You didn't?
I did not. Just things happened right along the way that I hardly went to work, and I had nothing to do with it. But I was just day and night doing this.
Now you didn't go to work specifically because this was hitting you.
No, it just happened. It just happened. I was on what they call reserve at the time I was bidding that, and they just didn't call me. I had a little vacation in there. Had one few-day trip, and they just never called me again. It just happened. It wasn't that I was ignoring my job at all. And it was during that.
It's like you were just given the time.
Yet something happened. I just can't tell you, Art. I don't know. And during that time, I did nothing but this, this is all I've done since that began in late '93, and through '94, got the book out in very late '95. November, we had it in our hands. It really wasn't on the market till '95.
How did your publisher accept it? When you went shopping for a publisher, I mean, you completed the book. I can understand you were absolutely driven to write the book. However, I can also understand that a lot of publishers would look at something like that and go, huh?
You're right. And what happened here was I read a couple books on publishing, etc., and quickly understood that if I took it to a major publisher, they're going to change it on me. And that was totally unacceptable. And I said, okay, I've got to finance this, and we'll do as good a run we can. We're going to make a good product here. And I asked my carpenter, who I met through, don't ask me, but when I met Al, I'm just wandering around. I'm in a warehouse area down in Melbourne, and never been there before, but was directed by a couple of fellows in a hardware store.
Yes.
And I was heading for one shop there, and here's a fellow standing outside this little stall next to him, having a smoke, and I said, well, they're busy there. I'll just talk to this guy. So I did, and explained what I was doing. I said, you know, do you have this type of saw? You got a lathe, et cetera? You can make this stuff for me.
In other words, we're talking about the device that would spin.
No, I'm talking about making the wooden models.
The wooden models.
I want somebody to make the models for me. I can't buy all these saws and things and put them in my house. Okay. So after this is all done, he says, "Sure, I can do this. Love to." He said, "By the way, what are we making?"
Yeah, right.
And he blew me away. I had to think about this for probably 30 seconds, and I said, "What the hell? I'm going to tell him the truth." I said, "It's UFOs." And he said to me, just as fast as I said it, he said, "You're right on time." And I go,
I beg your pardon, you're right on time.
You're right on time. And I said to myself, I really don't need this. And at this point.
Oh,
and I thanked him. I said, "I'll be back." And that's how Al and I met each other. We are extremely close. And what happened is, at the time, what I'm leading up to is, At the time that I needed a publisher, I decided I'm going to self-publish. I told Al, because he knew a lot of people in the community, I said, Al, look around for me, see if you can, if you come up with a publisher around here, but I don't want anybody near the Cape. That's the only requirement I have. I don't want anything, I don't want to be near the government or near the Cape at all.
Uh-huh.
Well, through happenstance, a friend, etc., who had just gotten a job with this publisher, and the two of them got together, and Al calls me and says, I got him. And he did, and Paul was the man. This whole group that worked with me, I didn't know any of these gentlemen before it started. I would just start looking and asking here and there just a very little bit, and boom, they were there. And we're very close right now. It's an unbelievable thing. Paul is, my publisher, is extremely tuned up and has done an absolutely gorgeous job on this. And at any rate, that's the story on how that happened.
Okay. So the book has been published. Is it yet available?
It's available. But when you self-publish, it, as you are well aware, I'm sure, it costs a lot of money to market something like this. It has gone out around the world through, say, Nexus Magazine's done a lot. I've got a couple of major distributors that distribute here and there. You can order it. Folks can order it through Barnes & Noble or any place to ask for the gift, or I can give you the ISBN number. You can just call Paul, and he'll mail it to you.
All right. Well, earlier today I was saying to myself, why the hell haven't I heard of this guy?
Yeah, it's just because the marketing is tough. It's really tough marketing it. And the bookstores, they just got a ton of books coming out all the time.
Well, I've heard a lot of people attempt to talk about crop circles, and they talk about fractals, and they talk about this and that, what they think it might be. But you're the first one who has come along and actually made me understand what they really are. And what they are is a construction manual for a ship. That does not misstate it, does it?
No, not at all.
All right, hold on. We'll be right back. This comes under the oh my God category. I've got a guest who has deciphered crop circles. His name is Doug Ruby. He's a commercial airline pilot. He flies the big ones. He took a sort of a fortuitous leave of absence from his employment some time ago and figured out crop circles. I just got a fax. This says it pretty well. I think Doug will like this. Art from the first of this century. Any recording device, tape recorders, film, video, records, 33, 45, 78, all involve spinning or rotating. And I'll add, even the CD you're listening to right now. What art makes better sense than to spin or rotate these, meaning crop circles, to get a message? It makes so much sense. It works. Think about it. Every device we have that imparts information spins. Some things I believe are meant to happen, and I think Doug Ruby is meant to be here this morning. He is. Doug, welcome back. I'm getting a whole, just all kinds of faxes, but the one that really hit me between the eyes was the one that I just read. Nearly every device we have that imparts information spins, doesn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Again, going back, how did you first decide to spin these things? I mean, now that we hear about it, it's like, simple concept, I understand that, but before that moment of discovery, it's not simple. It's not simple at all. So how did you get there?
Do you want me to talk about the dolphins a bit, or we've passed that?
Well, in a way, I guess we're past that.
Okay.
But, I mean, how did you get from the dolphins and the simplicity to the spinning?
Okay. The dolphin show indicated to me, because no one had even come close to deciphering these things. The mystery was was around the world at that time, and no one knew what was going on. And I said, why hasn't anyone touched this thing? And I made the analogy here on the planet and said, a dolphin show. They're all looking at all of these crop circles at once, all this profusion of formations. And a dolphin show, the trainer and the dolphin, it takes years for them to get to the point from working from basics on up to where they can put on this complex show. And I said, I must look just as the dolphins and the trainers began with the simple. And from there, I found the very simplest formation that I could. And this was just a circular formation, a ring formed in the wheat or in the grain, and with a center, let's call it a dot, circle in the solid center circle in it, and then two rings on the outside that were split. In other words, half a ring on one side, half of it on the other, and it was a gap between it.
Right.
Okay, and I looked at this thing, I picked it up, and I said, what do I do with it now? And I wanted to flop it on the table and spin it, but it's not going to spin because it's a flat piece of cardboard. So I just glued a button to the back of it, so I made a little top out of it, and flipped it on the table. And when I did that, the rings connected because it's spinning. And I said, are they trying to communicate with me? What else can I do with this thing? It's so simple. And I said, that's what they're trying to tell me. Spin it. So from that simple little crop circle, I learned that I'm supposed to spin them. And the formations were additive as we went along in the progression through them, that the information, one little piece of information added on to the other. And right after that, I went into another very simple formation, only this circle had an appendage on it. And now I couldn't spin it at the top because it was off balance. I said, well, I need to attach a shaft to it. So I just went out and bought some dowels, and wooden dowels, and glued one on the back of this thing, and spun it by rolling the dowel in my hand. This one I did had longer appendages on it, and this became cumbersome in my hand, so I built this little spinning machine to spin it in, and that did great. It was perfect. And from there, I went on into the major pictograms, and what I had just learned there, they're supposed to be spun, and put them on a shaft. But now I'm looking at an Alton Barnes. This thing is 400 or 500 feet in length. The football field is 300 foot in length. These things are gigantic.
Very similar to the one that just came to us tonight from Stonehenge, the one we've got up on the website right now, about similar size, about a football field. About a football field and a half. I think we just talked about that. That thing is about 500 feet in diameter. All right.
If you stood in that formation, you would not know what it is from the ground. You have to take an aerial view, or you do not know what it is.
Can you guess for me at about what altitude the airplane took the photograph we've got up on the website right now, this current one, this new one? What altitude would yield this image?
Anywhere from 400 to 500 feet.
400 to 500. So you've got to be pretty low. Yeah,
you're pretty low.
Okay.
And of course they're at an angle with this thing. You couldn't do that at 400 feet from directly over it, I don't believe. The camera's not going to capture it all.
Right.
To proceed on here, the pictograms are large, and from these I understood immediately that I'm supposed to rotate the disc 90 degrees, and then when they come together, if you pushed all of these on this post that they're on together, they form a little ship. And then I would place this assembled ship that I glue together on the spinning machine and spin it, and then it would reveal what it was supposed to reveal. And this was the high point of all the work, was when that thing spun, I just sit there and go, wow.
In other words, you actually took a compilation of these crop circles, and you put them together and spun them, and what you ended up with, how many crop circles were involved in that experiment?
Now, in all but the first one, you're spinning one formation.
Right.
This is a pictogram. It's a complex structure.
Yes,
okay?
sir. Yes, sir.
And this makes a little model, and it's on a dowel. It's on a central post. And I would spin this, and when I do spin it, it becomes three-dimensional. And because there are spheres located about the model and about the vertical post, when they spin, they form fields, and sometimes fields within fields. In other words, you can see right through them. But they look. In other words, it it's a blur, but you can, as I said, it looks almost electromagnetic in nature. They become free. It's eerie to watch these things.
In the final model that you got that became a ship, how many of these were involved?
Oh, about 6 to 8. I'm guessing here.
These are of the early ones, yes?
Yes. 90, 91.
All right, there's a lot of water and crop circles under the bridge since 90 and 91. So
correct.
If we were getting the early models of the ship in those years, what have we been getting since?
There's been a small smattering of formations that deal with biology, astronomy, our solar system, and somewhat a little bit with communication.
Communication.
Aside from that, we're looking at the ship. We're looking at after 91 and maybe a few in 92. The rest have all been basically addressing the ship, and by that the large pictograms disappeared, and now we started to get just circular patterns, very complex, or in 96 these unbelievable gigantic formations which deal with fractal geometry as what people are looking at them at. Since the Julius set and the triple-armed spiral, these things are gigantic in size.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
But they actually deal with the ship, and everything in here is with the power plant. They're showing us how the power plant operates. And what they're giving us is an intergalactic spaceship that can also run around on the electromagnetic field of the Earth or the grid lines, and they're giving us a power plant for free energy that does not need any fuel whatsoever.
I had you've never really listened to my program, have you?
No, I'm sorry.
All right, that's quite right. You need not apologize. I had Stan Tenen on the other night, and I just got a fax that said, all right, this sounds an awful lot like Stan Tenen's 3D hyper spins, etc. Mega convergence going on a lot lately on your program. Thank you, Nick. And that's exactly what he was talking about with respect to what some people call zero-point energy.
Yes. Call it tachyon energy, call it zero-point energy. You're basically taking an energy that's all around us all the time. We can't detect it because it's weightless.
Or a man named Richard Hoagland would call it hyperdimensional.
I don't care what you call it. It's here, but we can't detect it because we live in it, and it floats around like clouds, so to speak. And the fellows that have been working on free energy machines have made one big mistake with them, and that is that they'll go in their lab in the morning, they'll crank this thing up, and some days it just works really nice, and then other days it freezes up. By freeze up, I mean it
doesn't work.
They actually get ice on it. And other days, it heats up and almost burns up. And they're going, what's going on? And what's going on is they don't have a control mechanism on the device. And that control mechanism, well, I'm not doing this. I'm not in this. But if they placed a crystal rod inside their central axle and move this in and out.
Yes.
Okay, and they better attach it really well because it's going to go through the wall if they don't. They can now use this as a control because a crystal is solidified energy, and crystals are very important in not only what I'm doing but what they're doing, and they're very close.
Okay, again, this new photograph we've got when thank God about 10 minutes before broadcast. Your wife, your soulmate, who is obviously supportive of you and the computer person in the family, managed to get the photograph. And when you looked at it, you said, this is a crystal.
No, it's
a crystalline
structure. It's a crystalline structure, but again, we go back to geometry, frequency, energy, and if you vibrated through magnets, electromagnets on the bottom of a pan, and had dust, iron dust in that pan, when you hit the harmonic from the various frequencies you're vibrating these specific magnets at, it would form this formation in the pan. And you can look in the pan and see that formation and match it with this one. And what I'm saying to you is they're giving us not only the machine, but they're giving us the frequencies and the harmonics at which to use this power plant, because we're using spinning geometry and we're using frequencies and we're creating energy. There is no combustion of any sort. We're using this energy of the Creator.
Wow.
I call it tachyon energy, but tachyon energy is misused so much.
These are just names. I think they are all the same thing. This, as you point out, this energy that is all around us, that some call free energy or free energy machines or whatever. Other people call zero-point energy. There's lots and lots of names.
It's the same thing.
It's all the same thing. And these are instructions. At least these particular crop circles are instructions on how to use it.
It's the power plant. They're giving us the entire power plant. You can use it in a ship, or you can put it in a box. I would say a box the size of, I'm guessing here, I'm going to say, put 4 orange crates next to each other, and the power plant that could fit in that could supply power to New York City. It might be able to do more than that. I have really no idea. I just know that the power here is incredible, and what they're doing out there with it now, they're just touching it. And and of course, all these machines spin again. What they're doing here is spinning some superconducting materials that are magnetized, and fooling around with this in that area with it. This thing works in the same way, but it's the whole thing just laid out for you.
Okay, Doug, somebody has written me an obvious question. If these beings are so bright, so brilliant, why are they providing us with such an obscure message in such an obscure way? Why not just land and drop the plans on the ground?
Oh, I could kiss that person. Thank you so much for asking that question. I really wanted to answer or say this.
Go right ahead.
Why the crop circles? Exactly for that reason. Why don't they just come down and say hello? Well, folks, the beings of the light have shown up. And Art, where you are out there, you're around Area 51, aren't you?
Oh, yes.
I think they have tour buses that go through there every day, don't they? You can go through the whole thing.
Well, no, not tour buses. Now, if you go to the VFW up the street here in Nevada at about 4:30 or 5 in the morning, you will see bus. The government doesn't even admit Area 51 exists, but
I know what you're saying.
But they do. They've got buses up there, and on the side of the bus, Doug, it says Area 51, and that's where they pick up the employees and take them up to this place that does not exist.
Okay. What I'm getting at here is we're going to walk right by these folks. We don't need it. But the extraterrestrials they're working with, and you got to be an idiot if you can't understand that they are working with some extraterrestrials. They're regressive nature, negative nature. But in contrast to the secrecy going on there, here we have formations being created in fields of magnificent structure, of extreme detail. And nothing is hurt. Not one grain of, one stalk of grain is harmed. It's just gently bent.
That's true.
Tremendous respect for our planet, for everything, right down to a single stalk of grain, okay? These are messages of intent, and this goes on and on. We can talk about that. But what is the bottom line for the crop circles? And what they're doing is, in giving us these gifts, is that they're raising our knowledge. And when we all, or most of the world understands, have received these gifts, the consciousness of humanity, the mass consciousness, will increase.
So instead of dumping all of this communication upon us at once, Doug, they are, as the trainer does with the dolphin, beginning with the simplistic forms of communication.
Exactly. And what you're seeing here is you're seeing some folks, like I said, of the light, that are extremely polite. They have an ethical standard that would blow us away.
Okay, well, that makes sense. I mean, if you tried to give a dolphin a hand signal to jump through a hoop, a dolphin that had never been trained, you would get absolute zero in response. So in that same sense, then, they're beginning with us, with the simplistic, and expecting us to catch on. And, Doug, you're the first one I know that's caught on. Relax, we'll be back, and we will get the phone lines opened. I hope you all are going, aha, as I have been. Isn't this something?
You're listening to Art Bell, Somewhere in Time. Tonight featuring Coast to Coast AM from June 12th, 1997.
I've got the man who has figured out crop circles. The book he wrote is called The Gift, The Crop Circles Deciphered. He is a commercial airline pilot named Doug Ruby. He still flies, so we're not going to talk a lot about that aspect of his career because he would like to keep it, and you can't blame him. He flies the big planes, 737s and on up, and that's all we'll say about that. This man has got it, folks. I feel it, I know it, intuitively I know it. It all makes sense. Crop circles are meant to be spun, to be rotated. Before you can understand them, you spin them. When you do, what you've got are the plans for a ship, a spaceship, a saucer. In the later crop circles, what you have are plans for the power plant. A power plant that would utilize energy that some call 0 point. There are many, many names for it. Energy that is all about us. In a moment, I've got a surprise for you. Like a circle in a spiral, like a wheel within a wheel, never ending or beginning or some half-forgotten reel, like the images you find in the windmills of your mind. The more I think about this, the synchronicities in themselves resonate with a gut feeling that he, my guest, Doug Ruby, is exactly right. He has figured out crop circles. They are a message. Once again, I'm going to bring Doug back on the air. Doug, are you there?
Yes, sir.
All right. Doug, I've got somebody who wants to say a couple of words. You may or may not know him or ever have heard of him. His name is Richard Hoagland. He was a science advisor to Walter Cronkite. He advised NASA at one time and has won the Engstrom Science Award. And he's been listening to you in Manhattan this morning. And I think he had the same kind of experience I did as he listened. Richard, are you there?
I am here. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Richard, and congratulations. I'm quite familiar with you, and I've read your book.
Congratulations yourself. You know, someone tried to give me your book months and months and months ago, and I took a look at either an advertisement or something, and I said at that point, oh, my God, I've got to look at this. He's on to it. And then because so much stuff comes in and we don't have staff, it disappeared. So tonight, I'm about to go to bed. It's been a very hectic week, and I've been up very late listening to this guy named Bell who keeps having these people on, and they talk about all kinds of stuff. And the phone rings. And it's this guy named Bell saying, nope, you can't go to bed. You got to stay up and listen to this one. So here I am by the computer, droopy-eyed, going through some of my mail over in Enterprise, and I'm listening, and I'm saying, oh, my God, it's the guy. And, of course, you got it. I think he's got it, folks. And it really tickles me because, of course, the key is rotation. But if I may make one small caveat, it's not just about ships. It's about everything.
Absolutely.
Because this is an energy mechanism. It's a vehicle transport. It's the keys to the kingdom that can be applied to everything from vehicles all the way up to probably planets and beyond.
Absolutely.
And there's some very interesting connections in that regard of the crop circles with things that look suspiciously like planets and the moon, et cetera, et cetera. And that's part of some of the quiet work we've been looking at, that we may get to someday to talk about. But there is a tremendous convergence here. Earlier in the week, Art had a gentleman named Gene Maloff on, former chief science writer at MIT, who was previewing an ABC telecast earlier this week on Wednesday of a so-called free energy technology and a technology which could radically reduce in the space of a couple of hours radioactivity from uranium-235 or 238, I guess, that would have taken billions of years to do. And it was literally done on a time-lapse camera. This physics, this technology that someone, and I really think you're exquisitely right about the gift, is trying to provide in the most crystal clear, prime directive, Gene, are you listening, mechanism, is precisely right in terms of which side of the force we're talking about. And it is so antithetical to the paranoia, the fear, the weirdness, the woo-woo factor, all the nonsense of UFOs is exemplified in the exact opposite, in these incredible, artistic, and overwhelmingly affirming formations that are so democratically available. And someone, the person that you want to kiss, the person who asked that question,
sure.
If they landed on the White House lawn and gave it to us, it wouldn't mean anything. We have to be part of the equation. We have to be figuring it out. We must be a participant.
And what are we doing? We're doing that, Richard.
That's exactly what's going on, and that's why it's the right thing to go on, and that's why I'm losing more sleep.
Somebody named Sean in Yucca Valley sent the following. Perhaps crop circles are a cosmic IQ test for the human race. If we succeed in deciphering the symbolism, we're rewarded with the secret of interstellar propulsion. If we fail, who knows?
Well, let me amplify. If we succeed, we're rewarded with our future. If we fail, I really fear for what's going to happen. This is not just an IQ test. This is kind of, are we going to pass the bar exam and go on to matriculate? There's some big-time stuff coming up, and somebody wants us to get with the program, and they want us to reach for it so that when we get it, it's ours. We've internalized it. We own it. It isn't totally a gift. We have to work for it.
You're correct there. And not only that, but a human is going to introduce this to humans.
Yep.
And by taking this long period of time here, we're seeing a tremendous patience and politeness and consideration from these beings. And
well, it's a respect for who we really are.
Exactly.
And the thing that has bothered me so much about a lot of the UFO stuff, which is why I stay light years away from it, except tonight, is that so much of the so-called contact material, the channel material, the whatever you want to call it, has an incredible whining, manipulative tone to it.
Yes.
The thing that is so strikingly different about what's been appearing in England and in other parts of the world is that it just sits there. You can appreciate it aesthetically. You can go lie down in it. Or you can, do numbers and geometry and analyses, or you can have this incredible conceptual leap, which you had, which is really, I got to take my hat off to you. It was an astonishing leap to figure out the code key to spin these things to make them 3D, like Nick's message regarding Stan Tenon's stuff. If you don't know about Stan Tenon's material, I heartily recommend you to the Mayru Foundation website. The point is, there is a total different feeling tone. And coming from me, I'm sure that's going to raise some eyebrows from some folks out there, to the crop circle, quote, message. It's the same kind of tone we get in the message of Sidonia, in the geometry, the identical geometry that we have found on Mars and on the Moon in the artifacts. And there's a consistency here, which, by the way, is going to continue because, as Art knows, we've been playing around with a certain piece of NASA video. And not next week when I'm on to talk about some new breakthroughs on another part of this, but in the next couple, 3 weeks, sometime hopefully before Roswell, we will have some things to say about the STS-80 tape, and lo and behold, there is a consistency there which echoes some of your decoding in the crops in England.
There sure as hell is, because that would be the technology that would be demonstrated in the video, wouldn't it, Richard?
Yep. Now, messages to be received, and, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, have to be redundant. The core of communication is you can't trust that by the time your message gets to your intended receiver,
right,
noise has not interfered.
Right.
So echoing what our friend tonight has been talking about, many years ago, starting back in '88 when my friend at ABC went to England as part of the ABC crew and actually took some photographs of the crop circles and sent them to me, and I started asking the question myself, how can there be two different phenomena on two separate worlds, meaning the ruins and then this inexplicability in England, and then not possibly have some commonality, some common theme? So I started quietly looking at the numbers. And in those days, this is like, the Dark Ages, no one was doing surveys and surveying of crop circles. For one thing, they were circles back then, remember?
Sure.
They're very simple.
That's exactly what Doug said.
Yep, they started very simple.
Yeah.
But no one was walking them off, measuring them, using theodolites, using any surveyors, transits, anything. So getting real accurate numbers is very difficult. And finally, there was one, I think it was Cheesefoot Head, which was the one that we cracked, the first one, and it appears in monuments. And that one turned out to have what I call tetrahedral numbers, meaning sacred geometry numbers. And because those numbers were the same as those we'd found out from measuring geometry at the ruins on Mars, to me, there was, that aha, and I said, okay, it's somebody trying to tell us the same stuff. But
Doug
I, again, have to take my hat off.
Yeah, Doug put the final piece.
I did not leap to this incredible breakthrough, which is it had to be raised in 3D and rotated, and then the whole thing makes sense.
God, it makes sense.
It's a major aha.
I really appreciate that, Richard. I have a present for you. What I'm seeing here, what I've been seeing, it blows me away. We haven't mentioned it yet tonight. But what they did with this power plant is they took what they saw in nature in our solar system as the planets turn. If you took these elliptical orbits and made them circular, and a fella has already run all this out for you, and I've been reading his material. What they've done is they've duplicated nature and done it synthetically. And what you're looking at with your material dovetails with this power plant, believe it or not.
See, when you say power plant, for a lot of people, they're thinking, ships, airplanes, and obviously, given your current profession and background, you'd be thinking in terms of that. When I'm thinking power plant, I'm thinking, prime movers, first causes. I'm thinking of a physics that runs the universe.
Yes.
By which the solar system operates.
Yes.
And there is, by the way, a rather remarkable correspondence in terms of sizes, dimensions, ratios, and numbers of the solar system with the things we found at Sidonia, with the things you found in the crop circles, with the things that you found. And all that is trying to tell us I believe, meta-message. There's nothing small or trivial about this. And I'm extraordinarily pleased to be asked to be on to basically thank you in person.
Well, I appreciate the compliment coming from you. It's a tremendous honor.
Richard, we're going to end this now, but you're going to be here Tuesday night,
Wednesday morning.
My birthday, by the way.
Well, we picked that specifically. We have a major new breakthrough and a major set of predictions for some pretty astonishing things that we think are going to happen on the NASA front in about the next 2 to 2.5 weeks. And we're going to give the background. We've got time to do it. We're going to put it on the web. That's what I have to finish doing. We're going to lay out all the I's and dot the T's, or dot the I's and cross the T's so people can follow the process. But this is going to be, I believe, a breakthrough summer in many directions.
Yes.
And a part of it we're going to be able to talk about next week.
All right, that's enough of a tease. I appreciate your coming on this morning, Richard. But
can I go to bed now?
You can go to bed now. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good night. I thought that was important to do, Doug, because Richard's work and your work spin together.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Pun intended. I would like to begin to allow the audience to start to ask questions, but there are so many questions coming in from facts, people asking about other ways this might be done. For example, please ask Doug if there's any reason why a 1/4 inch or 3/8 inch variable speed drill couldn't be used as a spinning device? Many people have a drill motor in their home now.
The problem with that is you could use a drill, but the thing is stabilizing this thing and mounting it to the drill. You could put it in the drill bit and spin it if you had a stand that you could place the drill bit in. You could do it. It'd be a little slow, but it would work.
One other question. You're not the computer expert in the family, but this is a good question. Art, just a thought. Can you put a crop circle on a computer screen and make it spin?
Yes, you can.
You can?
Yes, you can. That was done, well, we've done it. But we don't have access to the real good hardware, which is quite expensive. It was done in England in Glastonbury last year by Michael Glickman, who spun about 3 of them like that. Had a good friend in London that was what he worked in and ran the thing out for me. What you have to do is draw it on the screen, and then use the software to spin it, and that has been done. But they can't.
All right. Trust me when I tell you, we've got a lot of really heavy-duty computer people listening right now to us. And if there is not existent software, they will come up with it quickly.
Well, I can also tell you this, in that when Fred, who is my CAD man, who did all the diagrams in the book, as we went through these, and of course they're all in color on the screen, assigned colors. We just went, and the crispness of it, we just went, this stuff was intended to be in the computer. There is no doubt about that. And from it's just something of course we can't do with a book, but you could definitely, the software is out there to spin them on the screen. We've already done that, but we can't put out anything where we can get up to a good enough speed.
Doug, are we on a timeline?
Yeah.
That fax that we got a little earlier, in other words, we're supposed to do some sort of cosmic IQ test. I have written a book myself called The Quickening, and it suggests that human events, all areas of them, politics, social, economic, environmental, everything is beginning to speed up at an exponential rate. And I can feel in every part of my being that we are headed toward an event.
Yeah.
I'm not a prophet, so I don't know what that event is, but I just know that we are speeding our way toward an event.
Yes.
And I think we're on some kind of timeline. You feel that?
Absolutely. We're about to enter a period of revelations. And part of that is if you want to participate if we want to participate and have the light being, beings of the light here, we're going to have to place a lot more interest in these formations in the crop circles. And because what they want to do, and they're very polite and considerate folks, but they're not going to walk into your house unless they're invited. They're not going to come to this planet unless they're invited, and we have to invite them. And how you do that is you just say a little prayer and you invite them. Before you do that, you'd better understand what the information they're conveying, and that's what they're doing. And in giving us this time to decipher these formations, a bonding process will take place.
All right, hold it right there, Doug. We'll be right back. Get a pencil and paper, everybody. When I come back, I'm going to tell you how to get my book, an autographed version of it. Time is short, and we'll tell you how to get a Doug's book as well. You've got to wonder. And I bet my guest does. We're going to ask him, why an airline pilot? Why would the gift, the understanding, the revelation come to an airline pilot? Some people might say, well, he flies. He probably looked down and saw these formations. Wrong. I asked him about that. At the altitude he flies, the big airplanes, you don't see them anyway. So that isn't where it came from. I wonder if he knows where it came from. We'll ask. And then we're going to go to the phones. So if you have questions, or you're as astonished as I am, and you just want to express that, you're welcome to call. My fax machine is burning up. back now to my guest, and I'm going to first ask Doug the question I promised to ask. Doug, you're a pilot, commercial pilot, but that isn't where all this came from. And so I guess my question is, what's your best guess? I mean, why you?
Well, I think I was, and I don't mean to get flaky on the folks, but as I look back on it, I think I was chosen. Maybe my lifestyle, what I've done in my life, the way I've handled myself. And the other thing that I see is I think 3D. It doesn't matter if you turn me upside down or which way. I can see things dimensionally immediately. In other words, I have a bird brain. And this has been a real attribute in dealing with this phenomena.
I guess different people have different talents. Doug, do you think there's anything in your background of flying that had anything at all to do with your ability to see this?
Yes, because as I mentioned before, the last half of this book deals with, it becomes a flight manual. I'm showing you how, explaining how a saucer ship, a saucer operates. We go into ascent, descent, lateral motion, longitudinal motion, angular motion, and hovering, and how it actually, the machine does this.
And you back that up with images, I take it, in the book.
Oh, yeah, there's, 72 photographs, about 57 diagrams in the book.
Oh, okay. All right. Let me pause you 1 second and tell everybody we're about to give you information on books. So, and then we're going to go to the phones. My book, I have written a book called The Quickening, which I described a little while ago, and I'm like a rattlesnake that's rattling. I'm telling you right now, you cannot wait any longer because pretty soon I'm going to stop signing books. So if you've been procrastinating, stop now. It's the hardback version, 337 pages. It's called The Quickening. If you want an autographed first edition copy, I'm going to give you the number right now to order. Don't wait any longer, because if you do, you're going to lose out. The number is 1-800-864-7991. That's 1-800-864-7991. And now Doug's book, The Gift, The Crop Circles Deciphered. Doug, is there a phone number people can call to get it? That's the easiest.
Yeah, the easiest is Paul, my publisher, with Blue Note Publications, has got an 800 number. I don't know if it's good in Canada, but it's 1-800-624-0401. They take credit cards and send it out the same day.
Yeah, they finally started doing that with my book, too. When you first get going, they get boggled down, and I'm afraid your publisher is in for a real busy day today. So they will send it out the next day, or if they get bogged down, within days.
Sure. No, yeah, very soon. He's quick. Let me give him just a couple more numbers if somebody's out of the country.
All right, let me repeat the number first. It's 1-800-624-0401.
Okay, and another, just a telephone number is 407-799-2583. 583.
Now, are these 24-hour numbers?
No, they're there during the day. If you want to fax it in, it's 799-1942. Fax is on 24 hours.
Wait a minute. Give me the fax number again. 799.
It's 407-799-1942.
All right.
You can just leave your address, and if you want a credit card number, if you're extremely honest, just charge it for it and get the book out.
All right. So within the contiguous USA, probably Alaska and Hawaii, hopefully, 1-800-624-0401, or if that fails, or you're in Canada, area code 407-799-2583, or the fax number, area code 407-799-1942. We got that right?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's talk to some people out there. On the wild card line, you're on the air with Doug. Hello.
Hi, how are you, Art?
Okay.
Doug, this is really fascinating.
Would you speak up for us good and loud and tell us where you are?
I'm in Waco, Texas.
Waco, all right.
And I was listening to you, and I was wondering if anyone had drawn any similarities here between what you're discussing and Carl Sagan's book, Contact, except for the means of the transmission of a message. It's very similar.
Yes, I know what you're saying, and that's exactly what we're getting. We're getting extraterrestrial contact here. People are looking all over for it all the time. Discussion, is it real or not? You've got contact sitting in your backyard with the crop circles.
It's hiding in plain sight.
And it's right in front of you. And if you want to have a trip of your life, go over there this summer or next summer, and you're going to have a wonderful time. Just head out on M4 out of London, and an hour and a half later you're in Marlborough, and you're right there at the barge inn. And
yeah, let me ask you about that. You went to Stonehenge, didn't you?
Yes.
Is it worth asking, particularly for you, what was it like to actually be in the middle of one, Doug?
Well, it's awesome. For me, it was if I ever had religious experience in my life, you want to call it that, that's what it was. The energies, you become forgetful. The energies really affect you there within these formations. And I was lucky that the first day I got there, the very first morning, I met up with Ilis, who's coordinator for crop circles for the United States, and her and another gal were heading out to look at a crop circle, and I look up on a hill, and never seeing one in real life. I said, "Is that something up on that hill?" And the two of the girls went, "Oh my God," and tore up this road, and they had just been formed that night. They were brand new. Only the farmer and his daughter had been in the field, and we were the first in there was two formations on one field. And by the way, this field was on a hill, and that hill, there's ruins of a castle on it, and it's where King Charles died in combat. Huh. So the history here sort of overwhelms you. And that was an unbelievable experience. I spent a week over there.
I can imagine. So you can feel an energy within them. There are a lot of people in this country, researchers. Linda Moulton Howe deals with researchers, and they go out and they examine the crop that has been turned down, as you point out, gently in a way that could not possibly be done by a couple of dunces named Doug and Dave with boards and chains. They detect molecular changes in the crops, a very interesting molecular change that cannot quite be duplicated, but is very similar to microwave energy.
Exactly.
And I'm trying to think of the doctor's name, which ends in good, Dr. something good.
Living's good, isn't it?
That might be it, or something like that. And he's extensively tested them. He's found a few fakes, but by and large, most of them have shown these strange molecular changes. So do you have any hint, any idea how they're formed?
Sure. You can use dowsing rods over there. And some people can't use a dowsing rods. But when we first went into these formations this morning, Ilis, she's already, the girls are in the circle. I'm still walking up saying, "Aren't you going to say anything to the farmer?" And they said, "Oh, forget the farmer." They were so excited. And Ilis said, "Stop," before I entered the circle. "Take your shoes off." And she handed me the dowsing rods. And as I walked in the circle, the rods, the minute I entered the circle, the rods closed on me. She says they will either close or they were open. What you're entering is an energy barrier.
Huh.
These formations are formed by an ultrasound, which might be up in the frequencies of microwave. And this energy remains in the field for quite some time. And how they're formed very rapidly. For instance, last year, in the same area where your formation that you've got on the internet that was just formed yesterday, this snowflake type geometrical formation, right about in the same area, last year they had the Julia set.
Right.
And this thing was 915 feet in length.
Right.
And I'm just reading off of this. Is from Colin Andrews, back of it here. And this gives you a real quick idea on how quickly they're formed and what's happening here. I'm going to read this. A light aircraft pilot, Mr. Rodney Taylor, was flying a passenger over Stonehenge at 5:30 p.m. They looked down from the aircraft as they flew around the area on their return to Thurkston near Andover, Hampshire. Both men are certain that the very large pattern was not in the wheat field at this time. Just 45 minutes later, at 6:15 p.m., the passenger from his aircraft drove his car past the henge on the major highway, A303, and saw the circles in the field with people already stopping to look at them. He goes on to say, this agrees with numerous eyewitness reports around the world of people who claim to have witnessed the crop circles forming.
As a matter of fact, I believe that pilot signed a deposition. Now, interestingly, again, on the one that we've just got on the internet, folks, there's a brand new Stonehenge crop circle. If you're just tuning in, God, I hope you're not. Hope you've been listening. We've got it on our website right now, which is www.artbell.com. Now, if you look at this crop circle, you'll notice that there are tire tracks not only within the crop circle, but beyond it, indicating that the farmer had been doing work on that field, perhaps not even knowing that he was going right across this crop circle. Is that possible?
What you're seeing there they're called tram lines, and as I recall, they're about 60 feet, separated by about 60 feet. And these are the way they irrigate their fields over there. Is they have these long metal structures on these wheels, and they'll go across 2 or 3 of these, and these tram lines are formed by the wheel. So they were in the field when the formation appeared.
He says. So that also gives us a manner, then, of measuring distance.
Yes, it is.
I've got you. All right, here we go. East of the Rockies, you are on the air with Doug Ruby. Hi.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Where are you?
My name's Dan, and I'm in Virginia.
Yes, Dan.
I'm becoming an insomniac. There's so much information coming out here in the last 3 or 4 days talking about a quickening.
I know.
It's overwhelming.
I know.
All the answers are just falling into place here.
I know.
And the thing I wanted to ask Doug about is I think he has more here than a schematic, for a new power system. I think he has keys to unlocking the consciousness of mankind here.
That's absolutely correct. This phenomena is on a subconscious level also. It's affecting us.
And Robert Morningsky, I read his book, and he worked with the crop circles, in tying it in with the prophecies of the Hopis.
Yes.
And he does an incredible thing. And when I got his book and read it, I saw a ship. I said, these things are showing a ship of some kind. And then he took it, one step further. So I sure hope Robert Morningsky, can make contact with you, because I think you two guys got a lot to talk about.
All right, my friend, thank you. There are going to be a lot of people who are going to be literally, Doug, as a result of what they're hearing this morning, combined with what we have done, they're going to be jumping up and down. I believe this is it. And how long have you been dealing with this aha experience?
Since the very beginning of 1994, January 1st of 1994.
That must be hard to contain in a lot of ways. In other words, obviously, with your career, you probably can't go to a lot of the people you work with and try to talk to them about this, can you?
No, that's not true. I don't advertise this a lot, but I have a lot of friends out there, and pilots like to talk about these things. It doesn't matter what you're talking about.
To each other.
To each other. Oh, yeah, this is close. It's not, they don't take it home, they don't take it anywhere. It's between the pilots. And that doesn't matter if it's a female or a male. It's just a bond we have.
Okay. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Doug Ruby. Hi.
Hi.
You're on the air.
Okay.
Where are you?
My name's Stephen. I'm in Victoria, British Columbia.
All right.
where to start without putting my feet in my mouth at the same time. I think one of the reasons why Doug has been able to figure this out is because of his perspective. And if you sort of think about it, who better to know what's going on in the world and realize that a change has to take place than an airline pilot, in the sense that he's like a guardian angel for the people he's carrying around and for the planet. You know, you can actually see the pollution, the problems, and everything else that are actually going on in the world because you're so involved in it. And whether or not you actually believe in reincarnation or anything else like that, which I do, you're here at this place doing this at this place in time because whether we're ready for it or not, it has to happen. And if it does get figured out, which I know it is going to, it'll benefit everybody. And it's sort of along the lines of allowing the meek to inherit the earth, because anybody can use it, anybody can build it, and it's not going to cost them their soul.
You're absolutely, I agree with you wholeheartedly on all of it, Stephen. And to go on just a little bit from that, the ego is absent from me. I am your servant and the Creator's servant.
Yeah.
I appreciate the call, Stephen, from Canada. There's something, this is totally off course from where we've been going, but I want to ask it for the sake of the audience. Many, many, many of us sat here on the ground and watched Comet Hale-Bopp, one of the most spectacular things that I've ever seen in my whole life. I live out here in the desert. We had a very clear view. But I can only imagine what that comet must have been like at, what are typical altitudes that you fly at?
The highest we go is 42,000.
42.
And we're usually down in the mid-range of the 30s, depending on the weight of the aircraft. But you're absolutely right. That Hale-Bopp sat out there out our front window night after night, and we'd have the flight attendants come up and take a look. And you know, everybody was just in awe of this thing. It was absolutely beautiful. And you could see both tails on some evenings with it.
Oh, boy. I've heard stories from some people who were passengers during that time that occasionally pilots would make turns so passengers could get a look at the comet. Did you ever do that?
Well, I don't know if my chief pilot appreciate this, but we would turn the lights out in the cabin on when we had the right visibility. Ask the folks first if they'd like to see the comet from that altitude. Turn the lights out in the cabin. We make a couple of 360s, and so both sides of the aircraft could, all the folks there could take a look at it.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, that's what life's about, fun.
Yeah, even commercial pilots have fun, I'm sure. As a matter of fact, I'll tell you a funny little story about that when we come back. First time caller line, you're on the air with the author of The Gift, The Crop Circles Deciphered, Doug Ruby.
Good evening, Art, and good evening, Doug. This is Debbie. I'm calling from Puyallup, Washington.
Hi.
And it's going to be difficult to be articulate when my jaw's on the floor, but
I hear you.
This is a great subject. All of your subjects are great, Art. My question for Doug is, we already know what the government has done with any contact they've had with this type of technology from this type of source. It's hidden away, it's denied, everything else. And I'm just wondering what makes Doug think that this technology will be built and we will actually do something with it when it probably will cost a lot of money, and that means the more elite people of our society will have access to it first, and we don't know what.
Well, we can enlarge on that question, and the question might be, how do you know that there are not others who have done what Doug has done, and that this technology already exists? Doug, you think that's possible?
Absolutely. They've got it. They've got it now.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. We'll be right back. You know, sometimes the most complex things are really the simplest. Complexity versus simplicity. Things that we contemplate as being incredibly complex that are actually very, very simplistic. You know, when you listened to what Doug said over the hours, in a way it seems so simple, But it really wasn't. Nobody else figured it out. Nobody else knew what it meant. Nobody else knew how to approach it, and for some reason, you call it, I can't. He knew. What a program. This is a question. I've been wanting to know about these crop circles. I mean, inside, I knew that there was a puzzle to be deciphered here. I knew these really meant something. And I have never had anybody on any program, and I've done a lot of programs on this subject. Many, many, many. And I've never had anybody who has been within light years of the understanding that Doug has obviously got. He's got it. This is the answer. There is no way that anybody can listen to those 2 hours, particularly, without going, I get it. Finally, I understand. And this is going to lead to some pretty tremendous things for our society, I do believe. I think this fellow's right on the money. You may be reminded of the old Close Encounters of the Third Kind. When the fellow was putting the mashed potatoes together, driven, compelled to do what he was doing, this pilot that we spoke with, Doug, a commercial pilot, was driven in exactly the same way. The only thing is, he's come away with the answers. I mean, I've been doing talk radio a lot of years, and I know when a bomb has gone off, and a bomb has gone off. The information imparted tonight is going to end up resulting in research that is going to change many, if not most, aspects of our lives. Maybe even in our lifetimes. I just know he's right. He's right. That's all there is to it. He's right. But under any circumstance, I'm telling you, this is the most definitive, clear, obvious work on crop circles I've ever heard in my whole life. It comes from an airline pilot, of all places. You know, people ask me about my program, and I think tonight, and maybe all week, has been a particularly poignant example of why it works the way it works. It's unplanned. Utterly, totally, completely unplanned. Back now to Doug Ruby, the man who has deciphered crop circles. Doug, there's a lot of people that want to talk to you, so we'll use the balance of this hour, if we can, to let you talk with them. Wes, if that's all right.
Art, I just want to mention, we were talking to Debbie, and she'd asked us a question you went on commercial. But she was asking about these formations and the information about this power plant or energy machine.
Right.
And being divulged to that it was. Does the government have this now, or is it in possession of anybody here on the planet?
And you had answered yes.
Yes. But I wanted to follow that up and answer the rest of her question and tell her that as soon as I got this thing nailed, I'm giving it to all of you. It's not mine. It's not in my possession. It was never meant for me. It was meant for you. And I am nothing but the conduit through which these people have reached you. Therefore, I'm releasing it to the public, all of it. And it's a dangerous move, but it's what they want. Only because it could go into folks' hands that work on the fear of motivation instead of the love.
I understand. But the safest place for you to be is where you are right now, very public. Once, you know, the genie's out of the bottle here, Doug.
That's right.
And that really makes you safe. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Doug Ruby. Hi.
Hi.
Where are you?
I'm in North Hollywood. My name is Lou.
Okay.
Never called before. Thank you for having me on. I have a couple of things, and I'll try to be very brief.
Okay.
I agree with the man in Virginia that this is much larger than planets and UFOs. I think it has something to do with thoughts or things, energy. The law, wisdom, magic of the universe is energy. Having said that, I have a question for Doug.
Okay.
When I went to Stonehenge, the friend that I was with said, gee, what's the sense of this, or what's this about?
Yeah.
And I stood on the top of this hill, and I turned, what is that, 360 degrees? And I said, you can see 360 degrees. You can see, it's like looking at the world from here. Is there a pattern of these crop circles around Stonehenge in any way? Is there a pattern in which they've fallen on the earth there? Do you understand my question?
Exactly, and you're absolutely correct. There are ley lines, or lines of energy extending out from Stonehenge to other ancient megalithic sites all around that area for 80, 90 miles. Many of these formations form right on these ley lines, and the one we had talked about earlier, the Julia set, is smack on two of those ley lines, and Stonehenge is right in the middle of those ley lines, and that's going to magnetic north.
Okay. I have another thing, if you've completed that answer.
Yeah, go ahead.
1958, my husband was in the Air Force, and I was newly married. I was 18. And we were looking for a place to live, and there was an old gentleman around behind Lancaster, I believe, around several miles out of Avenue E, who took us into his barn, you might say a single-story barn, and showed us what he said was a flying saucer. And it looked something like, it was about 16 to 18 inches high, circular, about 12 or 14 inches across, and it resembled what looks like the Capitol Records building. Art, if you've seen the Capitol Records building in Hollywood.
Of course.
I have no other information than that. I was 18. I didn't question him any further, but he said it flew. Does this resemble anything that you were trying to explain to us, Doug, about what this combination of layers of discs would look like if you've seen a picture of the Capitol Records building?
I don't know what that building looks like. I can tell you that there have been folks around since I've been in this in the last 3 or 4 years that I've come in contact with that have built machines, have built saucers, model saucers, have flown them, and they work on magnetics. What we're into with this is a totally different energy, although those magnetics do work with this energy, and I should probably retract that statement. For instance, if you went with just a simple little Levitron top that you can buy out of magazines, the instructions with that thing say you're going to have to take off some weights or put them on from day to day or from the morning to the afternoon.
I advertise the Levitron. I've got one here.
Okay, I play with it too. So what I'm saying to you is why is that? Is gravity changing? No. This thing is working in conjunction with this energy, and this energy floats like clouds around every day with us. In other words, there's more of it at some times and less of it at other times, and that's why these guys in their laboratories, they turn on their free energy machine, it either freezes up or heats up because they can't modulate it for the amount of energy that's present at that time.
Oh my God! So you're saying that's why the Levitron, and you're absolutely right. People who've played with it out there know. One day you've got to have one little weight on there. The next day you've got to make a little change to make it work.
That's right. And through the magnetics, the spinning of that, it's interacting with this energy. Well, I retract. I'm sorry I said that, Lou. Yes, I mean they have been touching on it. What we're looking at here is the frosting on the cake for. I mean, this is the real wow stuff out there.
Yeah, this really is the wow stuff. Have you had the opportunity to sit down with a good scientist and explain this? Will they listen?
I did that for the book. When I got into the physics, I was Daffy Duck. And I did have a friend that was a physicist, and we sat down for a good afternoon, and I shot a lot of questions at him about this. We came to some determinations. I run through this in the book when we start getting to the power plant in the back of the book. As far as I could go at that point, I've gone a lot farther than that now, but he didn't understand a lot of what I was saying, but we did come to some conclusions. He did not understand whatsoever this energy source. The whole thing, he just said, we just came to some common sense conclusions with it. And he also pointed me towards a couple of books to read from physicists who wrote for the layman, and from those I gleaned a lot of information, and I passed that on to the reader what I had sieved out of it that should be related, because you don't want to get into all these particles.
Sure. You said something a little while ago I can't let go. You said that you know of some people that have used what you have learned, your virtual manual, flight manual, you called it, to build some saucers.
No, I misstated myself. What I'm saying is that there are individuals out there that have built saucers that they have flown by remote control models, okay?
Yep.
And they are now quite paranoid. They were told never to touch this again and don't talk to anybody about it, and if they didn't want to do that, there would be severe consequences. So that's where they're at with it. It's a dangerous arena to get into for some odd reason.
Let me read this to you, see if it makes sense. Doug has likened crop circles to the hand and voice gestures used by an animal trainer to communicate with a dolphin. The trainer begins with simplistic commands and gestures. And as the animal learns, the gestures become more complex and begin to build off one another. But just as a parent wouldn't teach a child to run before they had learned to walk, one would think a trainer wouldn't teach an animal complex tasks before the animal had learned and demonstrated they had learned the basics. It would be futile from the perspective of the trainer and totally confuse the dolphin. If crop circles are elaborate hand gestures, in quotes, to the human race, why would they have grown in complexity over the last 7 years if no one yet understood them? One would think they would only grow in complexity if there was some evidence of learning, some demonstrative form of understanding, which begs the question, who's learning, and how is this learning being demonstrated?
Good question.
You bet. That's from Mark in Los Angeles, actually.
They're right here, Mark. We're not dealing with somebody that's off-planet sending this stuff across space and saying, oh, I hope they receive this message. They're right here. They know I've done this. They know this show's on tonight, and they're probably very happy, I would say. So I hope that answered your question. By the complexity, even though everything came to a halt there for a few years with the hoaxsters, things are becoming more on track all the time. You're going to see some more programs on crop circles, and the crop circles are coming back, even though what you see out there in the media is so stifled in this country that it's tough to get any information on it. It is coming back again.
Doug, after tonight, you are going to be approached by a number of television programs who are going to want to bring cameras and get a visual demonstration of what you have so exquisitely laid out tonight.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to happen, Doug. Are you willing to do that?
Yes. This is my job, Art.
All right. This represents from Honolulu, Hawaii, many faxers, Doug. Please ask Doug if he has ever viewed his spinning model with a strobe light or different flash rates and varying model RPMs. This might show up yet more information.
Very perceptive, absolutely. And with the newer crop circles out, much of the harmonics, the speeds, we're getting into something here with the planets and how what they did with this machine is they looked at the planets, the energy between the planets. This is involved in the machine. Rings, harmonics of the spheres, and I do use a strobe and I use halogen lights.
Oh, really?
And I just finished my newest machine, the third one here, and this is got a variac with it. I can run it at a very specific speed, and I got an RPM meter on it. I need this. I got it because they're giving us all the information. I don't need to know a bunch of mathematics. I can just read it off a meter.
Doug, when you get that public, really public, and the television shows are going to come, they've got the numbers, they're going to call, your publisher's going to be contacting you. I guarantee it's going to happen because it's a visual thing, and the TV programs are definitely going to go for it. I can guarantee it. As you become more and more public, Doug, there becomes more and more of a threat to your career, and I want to ask you that when we get back. So stay right where you are. Good morning. I'm Art Bell, and my guest has blown me away. And I've been doing this a lot of years, and it's hard to get blown away, but Doug has done it. Good morning. This is a man who has deciphered the crop circles, finally. And we'll get back to him in a moment. I've got a fax here from a PhD in San Diego, and he goes into some very heavy-duty physics here, and I would prefer to have him on the air. So I'm going to take another break in a moment and try to get him on the air and try to get him to explain this to us, if possible, in person, rather than trying to read this fax, which will come out as Greek to me. Back to our guest now. Doug, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Back to the phones. They're loaded. First-time caller line. You're on the air with Doug Ruby in Florida, where it's getting late or early. Hello?
Hello.
Hi, where are you?
I'm in Portland, Oregon.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm very much interested in what Doug has had to say tonight, and I've only been listening to your program. My name is Kelly. I've only been listening to it for 3 nights.
Yes, Kelly.
And due to a good friend of mine named McIntosh here in Portland, Oregon, he informed me and keeps me informed pretty much of every one you've had on your program. And Mr. Ruby has hit upon something that has been a long-time favorite of mine, which I would like to fax him a copy of the drawing. Are you there, Mr. Ruby?
Sure am.
I would like to fax you a copy of the drawing. I've not read your book nor even been to Stonehenge.
What is your drawing, sir?
It's a wheel within a wheel, and if you read the Bible in Ezekiel,
of course,
it talks about a wheel within a wheel and wheels all about. And
it does. There's no question about it.
It sure does.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the call, and I'm sure you've heard that reference before, Doug.
I can't believe the perception of your listeners here. He's dead on. There's information in the Bible about this machine and other places. There are some written instructions out there. Good going.
Wildcard line, you're on the air with Doug Ruby. Hello.
Hello. How are you, Art and Doug? We've enjoyed the show. I have a comment and a question here. You know, the timing of the crop circles when they first started appearing, and the capabilities of the money has been spent on high energy discharge devices, majors for. Of course, they originally developed supposed to be for space-based defense, but anyway, what was seen. When one of these crop circles was being formed at night, Art probably remembers somebody called in and talked about it. That is, that there was a bluish corona discharge in the ionosphere above the crop circle, which would indicate, as you brought out, microwave radiation, a very high power. Of course, it would take to do this sort of thing, but this coincides more or less with the money that's been expended to develop this sort of thing, and. You know, there's a question mark there. Also was brought out by one of Art's callers who was in the Air Force and involved. The Air Force was experimenting with atmospheric holographic displays, and this sort of thing. And and then here's the Office of National Reconnaissance, which is a black outfit, the agency or subdivision of the National Security Agency, another black outfit. Involvement in the HARP project, and of course there is something similar to the HARP project in Norway that's capable of using very high energy, in fact almost to EMP levels.
Right.
But in any case, do you see a possibility of a very high-level hoax in some of this?
All right. Well, in fact, as a matter of fact, let's convert that first to the simpler form of the question. There was Doug and Dave, and so I would ask you, Doug, how do we know that we're not involved here either in a low level, as in Doug and Dave, or high level, as in military hoax?
I think the proof is right there in front of your face. Remember something. Every TV documentary done in this country has alluded to it's all hoaxers. Any information that's coming out of England or around the world about crop circles is given no attention or is not put on in the mainstream of media in this country at all. There is very little information about this going on at this time or in the previous years. So what I'm saying to you is if you want to look at the government or what you're looking at here as a scenario, I don't believe it's just the opposite. They don't want us to become attracted to these formations again. They do not want this information out. And another viewpoint of that is these formations are so intricate, the information being conveyed. For instance, Dr. Gerald Hawkins deciphered a number of the early on simpler formations and arrived at a number of musical notes from this. And
are you referring to Stephen Hawking?
No, Gerald Hawkins.
Gerald Hawkins.
Yeah, Dr. Gerald Hawkins. And this is out in the public mainstream. I mean, it's there if you want to try to find it. I just happen to be in the crop circle, and he's working with this. What I'm saying to you is these notes are in the diatonic scale, and his observation on it was he has no idea how any intelligence could do this backwards. It boggles his mind what they back-engineered here to convey to us. And then he came up with a fifth theorem on it. So what I'm trying to say to you, I think, as a frosting on the cake with this, is that this intelligence goes way beyond anything here on this planet.
Well, I think clearly it does. And again, I'm going to ask you a question because with the national exposure you're getting right now, Doug, and this is I'm sure it's sinking in out there hard in a lot of places. You're going to have TV coming to you, national TV and the rest of it. You have an important career. You've been at it for 30 years or so. Do you think you can deal with that and keep your career intact?
You can. The company I work for is a wonderful company. I'm well respected there, and as long as I give them the same respect, I don't think we're going to have any problem whatsoever. If we do want to look at worst case scenario, and they said, Doug, we think we ought to depart. Everybody knows about this now, and we just don't really want our passengers to be upset if there should be that deep third-dimensional mindset back there. Mm-hmm. A lady early on in the program asked that question. How do you think this information came to you? We went through that. And another answer to that is, another facet of it is, I'll go all the way with it until I drop. The only way they're going to stop me is to terminate me. And
if it comes to that, Doug, can you retire if you have to?
By terminate, I mean death. I mean, forget the job, for this simple reason. The importance of this information and the contact that is going on here from beings of the light, which we're going to need so desperately in our near future, weighs my entire life. Forget the job. And I will do what I have to do. If it comes to that point, I'll sacrifice whatever I got to sacrifice, but this is my job.
We talked about timelines. How short do you think it is?
Boy, I hate to touch that, Art. You know, there's so much out there. Just for me personally, what I see a great upheaval sometime 2003. I see this some darkness through there coming up in our sure future after a period of revelations, which that darkness will take part in. And then 2012, the planet's going to go fifth dimensional, and this is a big. This is Pandora's box we've opened here, and we really shouldn't go any farther than that.
All right, I understand. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Doug Ruby. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Where are you?
Art Bell?
Yes.
Yes, my name is Bob. I'm calling from Plainfield, Illinois.
Hello, Bob.
Basically, Mr. Ruby, fascinating. I made a correlation very quickly here. I don't know if anybody's ever brought this to your attention. You said that the crop circles were representations of possible propulsion systems, correct?
Correct.
Or models of it. I believe 50 years ago, there was proof of your theory found with the Roswell crash when there was parts taken from it. I believe the guy's name was Jesse Raphael, the major?
No.
Okay.
Major Jesse Marcel.
Okay, that's it. I'm sorry. All right. He evidently took parts and gave it to his son to look at.
I've interviewed his son about a year ago, and you're going to refer to the hieroglyphic like
exactly.
Marks on the bars, yes.
It's no different than a car crashing and people piecing together what's left over of a car. You can tell what it was by like schematics or diagrams. This could have been a part that represented the propulsion system on that craft.
It could have been.
It could have been. We're reaching there. I've seen what you saw on TV, and I didn't see anything there that looks anything close to this. But you're right. It could be.
All right. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Doug Ruby. Hi.
Hi. Art, I'm calling from Arizona.
Arizona. Okay.
Always a unique pleasure listening to your show.
Thank you.
I have a few quick questions for Doug. Right before one of the breaks a while back, and now just a minute ago, you had called these folks who are imparting these crop circles to us as beings of light or light beings, and mentioned something about having to say a little prayer because they're very polite and have to be asked to be here. And then a bit later you said they're actually here and know you're on the show. Could you, clarify these statements for us?
Well, if they weren't polite, we'd be French fries.
True.
Okay. I have never had any contact with these beings face to face or anything like that, okay? I am not being contacted telepathically by these beings. I do receive information. I don't know how it's done, but it's, I believe, a buzzing in the ear, okay, especially at night when I'm sleeping. As far as being here, and then you're saying, well, you're saying they have to be invited. What I'm saying here is they must have methods to observe some of these things, some of these happenings. I was, I believe, selected to do this. I would be, it would be very favorable for me, anything they would like to observe like of this manner. On the other, and I don't believe they would sneak around in another dimension or look at us like we would look at fish in a fishbowl. You have definitely a good observation. Good observation.
Your company has not been involved. You've intentionally not carried this to work with you, except to talk to other pilots. But how about your wife? How's it gone? Is she reconciled now to what you have discovered? Did she have her own aha moment, or is she still going, uh-huh?
Yes, it's still an uh-huh. On the other hand, that's nice to have around because if there was two of us floating around the house, it wouldn't work too well. So she's my little rock in the third dimension.
I hear that.
When I float off with this stuff.
I hear that. All right, very good. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Doug Ruby. Hi.
Hello. How come your brother Dave's not on the line with you?
Doug and Dave, that's a cute little joke, huh?
Okay.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Actually, have you ever been abducted or?
No.
Never have?
No.
Have you, caller?
Not that I know of.
That makes three of us, then. Next question?
I really don't have another question.
Well, okay, then we'll move on. First time caller line, you're on the air with Doug Ruby. Hello.
Oh, yeah, this is Scott from Reno.
Hi, Scott.
Yeah, I missed the first part of the show, and I'm just totally lost. So.
Yes, I'm sure you would be totally lost.
I got in about
all right,
2 o'clock.
then do this for me. I don't know whether in Reno they repeat the first portion of the show.
Usually at 4 o'clock, I think they do.
At 4 o'clock, all right.
Yeah, but only till 5. Do you think that'll cover it, or?
Do you think the first hour, Doug, would be enough of a primer for him?
Probably. That's when we covered the process.
Yeah.
It'd be better if he just got the tape from you.
Yeah, I would say get the tape, and everybody get the tape. This really is important. This is a tape you should have. You should give to your friends. You should pass around. That's the advice. Wildcard line, you're on the air with Doug Ruby. Hi.
Good morning, Mr. Bell. This is Robert in San Joaquin Valley, California.
Hi there.
Mr. Ruby?
Yes, sir.
It's a pleasure to be able to speak to you, sir. What I wanted to say to you is that you have been chosen, not just as a pilot, but flying above the Earth and knowing the constellations, and Orion and 19.5 and so much that you know, prior to when you started writing the book and prior to when you started piecing things together. If you think back, most likely you were touched either of feeling the surge of energy or light. There was a time, because you were chosen, as Mr. Hoagland and many others were. And if you think back, maybe you can recall. And if so, I'd sure like to hear it on the air.
All right, yeah, it's a good question. Richard is brilliant, of course, but Richard has been following this course for years and years and years, and I don't know that in the same sense that you apparently were chosen, Doug, that he was. He's brilliant, but I don't think it's the same thing. It's like something special happened to you. Do you know when?
I got to be honest with you folks. We got to come flat out with this thing. The only thing I can tell you, the only experience that I ever had in my life of a highly metaphysical nature, I was 10 years old. I was in Japan. My parents and the rest of the family had gone to Easter Sunday, and the rest of my family had gone to church. I had an earlier service. For some reason, I had slept in, and I went alone. And at some time during that service, a force entered my body from my back, stayed in my body for some period of around 5 to 30 seconds. I can't tell you a time there. And this was the most powerful energy I've ever experienced in my life, and it was nothing but solid love. And when it started coming out my front and going towards the front of the church, all I remember saying is to myself, and as I looked around to see if other people were reacting the same way, and nobody was, I just said, "Don't leave, please don't leave." And then it just it left my body and went towards the front of the church. I never knew what it was. I just know that it was awesome. And that's it.
Well, as I listened to really the 2 hours, I would guess, of explanation at the beginning of the program, there was no question in my mind, Doug, I know you're right. I know you're right. You really have done what the title of your book is, let's see, The Gift, Crop Circles, Deciphered. You have done that.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it.
Doug, I've kept you up. It's got to be coming up on 6 o'clock in Florida.
Richard's in bed. Can I go to bed now, Art?
It's your turn to go to bed.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and please thank your wife for me as well, who managed to download that photograph just in time.
I sure will. Would you please give me a call sometime? We'll hook up for this video for you.
You can depend on it.
Thank you, Art, and thank you, folks.
Good night. All right, there you have it, folks. That's one of the classic programs of all time. From the high desert, good night.